Thank you. I think as far as reform at the United Nations is concerned, Pakistan has been clear and consistent since 1995. Since 1995, we've been supporting and working with the UFC group in hoping that is the direction that reform at the United Nations will take place. Obviously, others have a different view. I strongly and fundamentally believe in multilateralism, in the United Nations. I think the best of humanity can be achieved when we're working together. But I also believe that any reform of the United Nations must be a democratization of the United Nations. It has to fundamentally, we have to sort of demonstrate the equality between states, not accentuate the inequality between states. I don't believe that an expansion of permanent members, I don't believe that more people being able to wield the veto is the solution to our problems. We've seen, be it Iraq, be it Ukraine, be it various issues at the United Nations Security Council. It is the permanent members, their outside influence, their ability to veto, that has hampered the smooth functioning, if it were, of the United Nations. And this is what we believe is the problem, and certainly not the solution.
Thank you, Miriam. Ambassador, Foreign Minister, it's Pamela Falk from CBS News. Nice to see you again. The UN funding for the floods is very low. It's about somewhere around 30% and may run out. And in an interview in the last day, you said Pakistan also has energy insecurity, is not taking reduced rates from Russia. How can you bridge the gap if the UN isn't coming through and other subsidies are not coming through?
So
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me break it down for you as far as the floods are concerned. This is, the sheer scale. I was here now 2 months ago, and I'm back again. At that time, a third of the country was underwater, but today, still parts of my country are underwater. Parts of Sindh, parts of Balochistan are still underwater. They've missed not just the one crop that they lost last time, but this time around, also the wheat crop. So economically for them, this is absolutely devastating. From the areas where the water has receded, there's devastation left in their way. We have the health crisis that I was talking about last time has manifested in various ways. But for example, our malaria season is going on for an extended period because waterborne diseases are still spreading as a result of the water still being there. We have an education crisis just in my home province of Sindh. It's one of the 4 provinces of Pakistan, but it's the most devastated from the floods. 47% of my province's school infrastructure, educational infrastructure, is either partly or completely damaged from the floods. And my province's 52% of my province's school-going children who used to go to school, and those 47% of the school buildings cannot go to school. So there's a climate emergency, there's a health emergency, there's an education emergency. It is an absolutely monumental task. As far as the relief efforts go, along with the United Nations and the international community, we're doing the best we can and to provide relief for the people. Within Pakistan, through the Benazir Income Support Program, we've provided cash transfers, particularly to women who've been affected. Through USAID and the United Nations, other forms of support is getting through. But the scale is so large that no matter what we do, we feel that more needs to be done. But that's the relief aspect, which has been ongoing, and now we'll need to continue to progress through the winter months with its unique challenges. Then we have to look towards the reconstruction and the rehabilitation, and we would like to do so, reconstruct, rehabilitate, invest in this infrastructure, but do so in a greener, more climate resilient manner. We're incredibly grateful to the Secretary General of the United Nations, who will be co-hosting a conference for climate-resistant Pakistan on January 9th in Geneva, where we will kick off this initiative. It'll be the start, not the end, of our our ambition to rebuild a climate resilient Pakistan. The scale of the damages, just to summarize for you finally, has been estimated at $30 billion, about 10% of our GDP. A conservative estimate is $16 billion are necessary for the reconstruction and rehabilitation. I'm under no delusion that we'll be able to gather this money through one conference or in one day, or through one event. This is going to be an ongoing process that we kick off with the UN Secretary General in early January.
And on the energy?
So on energy, so as part of a flood reconstruction rehabilitation, we are looking to for a catalyst for it to play as a catalyst for our green energy transition, and hopefully not only with the international community but also with the public sector, private partnerships, private sector, to work on green energy, on solar energy, on wind energy within Pakistan. Overall, we do have energy insecurity and an energy problem. We import far too many hydrocarbons. That bill for Pakistan and for the people of Pakistan is too expensive to afford. It is something that is getting increasingly expensive, and after the fallout of COVID and supply chains issues, and then now the Ukraine crisis has absolutely exacerbated that problem. We are committed to not only our transition to green energy, we want to focus more on domestically produced energy rather than imported hydrocarbons. But in the crisis of now, we will do whatever we can to meet our people's needs.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. Can I ask you about Afghanistan? We're seeing harsher and harsher punishments from the Taliban. We're seeing women excluded from public life. Girls have not been allowed to go back to school. And in recent days, we've seen clashes taking place across one of the two main border points between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Is it time for Pakistan to reconsider its policy of engagement with the Taliban? Do you need to look at this again?
Okay, so as far as engagement is concerned, I believe not only Pakistan but the international community must engage. I can't wish the Taliban away or Afghanistan away. They're a reality. They're there on my border. The modes and ways that we are engaging, the ways in which we are engaging, particularly within the Pakistani context and as far as the TTP, perhaps that can be reconsidered as far as strategy is concerned, as far as the way we put across our demands or what we expect from them. But we can't give up on engaging. I don't believe if I just turn my backs and stop talking and the rest of the world stop talking, that Afghanistan's issues will sort out themselves.
So how do you make the Taliban change its behavior?
Well, I remember, first of all, our interview the last time I was here. It went very well. I think in that I tried to argue that we've got a sort of chicken and egg situation. The economic situation in Afghanistan is dire. The humanitarian situation is incredibly alarming. It's this organization, it's the United Nations, that has said that 97% of their people will fall below the poverty line. I know of horrific stories. You hear of child marriages. No, they're not marrying off their young girls out of choice or because they want to. It's because they physically can't afford to feed their children. And they think it's better to have a child marriage so that someone can take care of their little girls. I've heard horrible stories about how parents are drugging their children to sleep because they have to go to sleep hungry. I want women's rights more than anyone. I believe that within the Islamic world, it is our religion that before many other religions granted rights to women. It is my country that produced the first Muslim female prime minister. We will not compromise on women's rights. But I want to also be practical about how we can achieve that. I do not believe we can starve the Afghans to force them to follow women's empowerment or to live around these provinces. I believe that there needs to be not only humanitarian assistance, but the conducive economic environment to allow those who do want to deliver on their promises to themselves and on the international community vis-a-vis women's rights, the political space to do so. I think history has demonstrated that whenever in the past in autocratic, theocratic regimes, when the economic times are tough, then rights are usurped, contracted, rather than expanded. I don't believe that with the Afghans' money frozen, with their banking channels shut, we will see progress on this and other issues. In my conversations, well, not my conversations, but conversations that happen with the government, the interim government of Afghanistan or their representatives, we do emphasize on the need for them to deliver, or not my promise or your promise, on their promise to the international community, which includes inclusiveness, rights to women and girls, particularly in the education context, ensuring that their land, their country, their soil is not used to perpetuate terrorism. I believe that we can achieve those goals through engagement. It's been 1 year since they've taken over Afghanistan. I'm sure that 1 year is an incredibly long time for the women of Afghanistan, for the girls of Afghanistan, but it is still 1 year. I'm hopeful that with further engagement, with not only ourselves, but working with the international community, through the OIC and other organizations, that we hopefully will be able to convince them to implement their own promises.
Mr. Azim Mian.
Mr. Foreign Minister, Azim Mian from GeoTV and Young Group. A war of words is going on between the Indian Foreign Minister and the Pakistani Foreign Minister. Just a few minutes back, Indian Foreign Minister accused Pakistan of terrorism, and Pakistan has been submitting so many dossiers to different authorities, different organizations, including the UN, but with no result so far. So how long the Kabul, Delhi, and Islamabad are going to face this war of terrorism against each other? And secondly, do you foresee any kind of rise in tensions because Pakistan is in a vulnerable situation and there is a war of words between you and the Indian Foreign Minister over here? Will it turn into any kind of rise in the tensions along the borders?
I don't believe we're in a war of words. Are we in a war of words? I haven't noticed. I want to be very careful because I actually didn't catch the statement that you're referring to.
Just now he made that by stakeout.
Oh, okay, well, that I disagree. It's pretty safe to say. Look, I'm the Foreign Minister of Pakistan. And Pakistan's Foreign Minister is a victim of terrorism, is the son of Shaheed Mohtamma Benazir Bhutto. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, when he was CM of Punjab, his home minister was assassinated by terrorists. Political parties, civil society, the average people in Pakistan, across the board, have been the victims or the perpetrators of terrorism. We've lost far more lives to terrorism than India has. Why would we want our own people to suffer? We absolutely do not. Unfortunately, I think India has been playing in that space that I referred to earlier in my statement. It's very easy to say Muslim and terrorists together and get the world to agree. And they very skillfully blur this line, where people like myself are associated with terrorists, rather than as those who have been fighting and to this day are fighting terrorism. As far as India is concerned, they've had terrorist attacks. They too should not have had to experience terrorist attacks. Whatever cooperation they need, we've offered in the past, we can, would like to continue to offer in the future. But they continuously perpetuate this philosophy. And it's not just for Pakistan, it's for the Muslims in India. We're terrorists whether we're Muslims in Pakistan, and we're terrorists whether we're Muslims in India. I'd like to remind the Honorable Foreign Minister or the Minister for External Affairs of India that Osama bin Laden is dead, but the butcher of Gujarat lives. And he is the Prime Minister of India. He was banned from entering this country until he became Prime Minister. This is the Prime Minister of the RSS and the Foreign Minister of the RSS. What is the RSS? The RSS draws its inspiration from Hitler's SS. The RSS, I saw yesterday that the foreign minister of India was with the UN Secretary General inaugurating a statue of Gandhi. But if the foreign minister of India was being honest, then he knows as well as I that the RSS does not believe in Gandhi, in the ideology of Gandhi, in the manifesto of Gandhi. They do not see this individual as the founder of India. They hero worship the terrorist that assassinated Gandhi. Within India, who perpetuates terrorism? Is it Pakistan? Ask the people of Gujarat. They will say it's their prime minister. Ask the people of Kashmir. They will say the butcher of Gujarat is now the butcher of Kashmir. And I'm not talking about some imaginary past. I'm talking about today. They are not even attempting to wash the blood of people of Gujarat off their hands for their own election campaigns. They have pardoned. Prime Minister Modi and his government have used their authority to pardon the men who perpetrated rape against Muslims in Gujarat, who conducted the gang rape of women in Gujarat. Those rapists, those terrorists were freed, were pardoned. For the Prime Minister of India, this is the truth of the matter. So in order for them to perpetuate their politics of hate, their Hindu supremacist transition from a secular India to the Hindu supremacist India, this narrative is very important for them. It's very important for them domestically, and it's very important for them internationally. They demonize the people of Pakistan. They expect the world to believe that we are all terrorists. I know we are not. And I have presented this dossier. I'm not talking about whenever well back Gujarat was. I'm talking about 2021. Well, we have proof that your government facilitated a terrorist attack in Pakistan. So I don't see how Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism. I do believe that we are the victims of terrorism. If it's not the government of India, certainly the people of India have been victims of terrorism. The people of Afghanistan have been victims of terrorism. The people of the United States, the people of Europe have been the victims of terrorism. And it's for us to work together to combat the politics of hate, to combat whether it's Islamic extremism or Hindu extremism, to come together and face these challenges and not pursue narrow populism, religious populism, divisive politics domestically or internationally, and to further spread hate within communities. Otherwise, it's not just this generation, all the generations to come will continue in this cycle that we see ourselves.
Sir, second part of my
Abdul
question,
Hamid
is there
Siam.
any
We will take follow-up question
Thank you.
later. Azim, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Siam.
Thank you. Welcome, Foreign Minister. Thank you, Mariam, and thank you, Ambassador Munir. My name is Abdul Hamid Siam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I have many questions, but Mariam ordered us to confine our...
So.
I cannot. And my question about internal issues in Pakistan. Recently, there was an attempt to murder Imran Khan. It seems that he is still popular. There are many people supporting him. When he calls for a rally, he receives hundreds of thousands of people. So how do you explain what happened? Who was behind it? What does the investigation say about the attempt?
I think there's two parts of your investigation. As far as the attack on Mr. Khan is concerned, I would like to once again emphasize to the Punjab government in Pakistan that it's incredibly important. This is not just an attack on Mr. Imran Khan. This is an attack on a former prime minister. It's not about political differences. We want to see the facts. and there's an investigation on the provincial level ongoing that needs to show results. On the federal level, the Prime Minister has written to our superior judiciary to investigate the matter. As far as Mr. Khan's popularity, that's where I'll contest you. Because we all saw him and his march in Pindi. Hundreds of thousands of people did not gather. A few thousand people gathered. In a country with 200 million people, I believe that any one of our political parties can organize a political function on the scale that Mr. Khan has. A popular leader was Shahid Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, who landed in Pakistan in 1986 and still holds the record to this day of the largest political gathering with 3 million people received her at the airport. Our population today is far beyond that. Mr. Khan is particularly well versed, as most populists are, with social media. He uses that as a propaganda tool. And there were some by-elections held recently in Pakistan, about 9 by-elections. And these by-elections were for seats that Mr. Khan, as parliamentarians, resigned from the assembly. So in those seats, there were by-elections. And in those by-elections, Mr. Khan lost 3 of the seats he once held and won the rest. If I was in that situation, where my party had had 10 by-elections or 9 by-elections in seats that are our seats, and I lost 3 of them, then I would be, quite worried about my prospects in the general elections.
Ibtisam?
Thank you, Mariam. Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azim from Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have first a very quick follow-up on James' question on Afghanistan and economics.
Sure.
Could you please elaborate a little bit more? What do you believe that need to be done? You touched a little bit upon the issue of frozen assets. So
yeah. So one frozen assets, but also their banking channels, Asha. So there's economic activity or their projects that were sort of pending from the old administration, and all of a sudden they can't function because people's bank accounts don't work. I believe this is sort of unnecessarily cruel. If these economic activities were to take place, they'd provide job opportunities to the people of Afghanistan that would benefit not only the men but the women of Afghanistan as well. So I think it's incredibly important for us to, at least on that front, facilitate the functioning of their economy so that there can be some activity for them to withstand the shocks that we're all facing, difficult economic times everywhere.
And when talking with the Americans or other leaders, what do you hear in response on that issue?
I get it. It's difficult, particularly in Western countries, particularly in D.C. or in Westminster, to convince your parliaments to continue, whether it's to continue humanitarian funding or to ensure progress on these fundamental economic points, given the perceptions of the Taliban and their history. It's very difficult to convince their congresses and their parliaments about this chicken and egg situation that I tried to explain to James about what comes first. And therefore, I think those are the sort of challenges that they do face, that this is where we're trapped. They say, no, you complete you deliver on women's rights first before we can move anywhere. And those of us who are watching the sort of situation on the ground are extremely concerned that if we don't even see this minimal progress, then women's education and an expansion of women's rights in Afghanistan will be a distant dream.
Shu? Yeah.
Hi, Minister. This is De Zhishu with China Central Television here. Hi. I'm going to ask a question on G77 and China. So we know that for past decades, not only developing countries, I would say the whole world benefits from globalization and the international trade and commercials. But recently, we saw more and more hurdles on this. Like particular country, they put the countries they put, let's say, tariffs on particular things, blocking export or flow of technology or subsidizing things. What would that impact the developing countries, especially in the time you said, and I quote, facing unprecedented challenges to their economic progress as well as the danger of social and political turmoil?
So we did discuss this at the G77, and I'm sure it'll be taken up by other countries as well. Absolutely, we've called for the end of this protectionism that we're seeing all over the place. It's particularly funny because growing up I heard a lot about how great the free market was and how everybody should follow the free market. And I think that worked well, why those specific countries that did benefit from the free market were benefiting from the free market. So then everybody should follow the free market. As soon as it seems that actually the free market doesn't work so well for us, then we're going back to these tariffs and these barriers that are particularly sort of cumbersome for developing countries. And I believe that we shouldn't enter into this world of not only sort of, we shouldn't move towards this sort of economic warfare, where if I'm not happy that that X country is doing well in a particular field, then I should, sanction the hell out of it and try and artificially boost that economic activity in my country.
Ephraim.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Mr. Foreign Minister, a question on Iran.
Okay.
Your country shares borders with Iran. Ambassador Akram many times said you cannot afford having bad relations with Iran. You hoped last year, Pakistan was hoping that the JCPOA would succeed so that the tensions in the region would. But today, when you see what's happening in Pakistan, what is your Pakistan's main stance on what's happening? And since you said that Afghan women are an issue for the whole Muslim world, is the Iranian youth, Iranian women, the 350 who were killed, 20,000 in jail, is this an issue for the international community also, or is it an internal issue that Pakistan would want to distance itself from?
As far as the protests that have been ongoing in Iran, I think that, which is obvious to everyone, that the peaceful protests are, and particularly the women who are protesting, are incredibly brave. We don't support sort of rioting or violence, but obviously peaceful protests are not only encouraged by us, but even within Iran. I think Iran's history has demonstrated that time and time again, the people of Iran have been very brave in their political activity, in their activism, and in their protesting. As a result of the protests of Iranian women, we are seeing, or at least I'm hearing, about potential reforms within Iran as a result of those protests.